Hi, do you want to know parenting advice that confuses or doesn't work so that you don't get stuck in that trap too? Well, I'm Nicholeen Peck and I teach parenting and family communication all over the world through the lens of self-government. And in this video, I'm talking about parenting advice you're going to want to watch out for because it's not good. Everybody's trying to help with parenting, right? And some people try to help in ways that just try to make them feel better about their own mistakes. Well, there are many different things that people suggest to others that actually can be detrimental to their relationships. And that's what we're talking about here. I'm going to be sharing with you multiple different things that you're going to want to watch out for so that you can help your relationships stay as healthy as possible. Since I travel around the world speaking to parents, I hear all kinds of stories. And parents will come to me on a regular basis and they'll tell me something that they're very proud of. They'll say, something like, well, my child is just a little attorney and he just has an answer for everything. He's so smart, but I'll tell you what, it wears me out. But you know what? That's just the way it is. You can't control everything they do, right? And then I'll say to them, okay, well, this is where you're at. Do you want any help with that? Because they're asking me and I'm wondering if they want help, but they've already made up their mind that there's this excuse that they can't do anything about it. Obviously, can you control what somebody else chooses or wants? No, you can't. So that little bit in there is true, but should you allow your child to just talk back to you all the time? Is that just the way it is? Is it a skill? Is it something that's cute? Well, I would say no to all those things. So I usually assume the parents talking to me about it because they actually want my input, maybe even want another idea. But sometimes parents will tell me that their children do certain things and they're totally fine with them doing those things. In fact, they'll tell other people that those things are normal when in reality those things might be disrespectful or even just straight out unkind or rude to siblings or family members. And this is because they've accepted them. So when a parent accepts a certain behavior or accepts that they don't know any other way to handle it, then they assume it must be right because they can't find any other solution. However, there are oftentimes many different ways to see a situation. And what I found is that if those parents could just see the situation from a different lens, maybe from my lens, then they might see the principle that they are missing. I teach self-government. Everything I teach is through the lens of self-government. When a person learns self-government, that means they learn self-mastery. They choose to analyze themselves and make plans for becoming the best version of themselves that they want to be. This means that they need to understand cause and effect and decide to analyze themselves on a regular basis. So when a parent chooses to follow the right advice, hopefully it will be principled advice. Sometimes there's popular advice and principled advice. What I hope to expose today is some of the popular advice that could cause us some problems, and then talk about some of the principled advice that we should be using to solve problems instead. Here's a piece of bad advice. Many parents will tell each other, well, just wait until there's a problem, then talk about it. That is not good parenting advice. A wise parent tries to perceive what types of problems could happen potentially in their home or to their child, and they try to prepare the child ahead of time by pre-teaching the child. Think about if you waited to talk about abuse or stranger danger until there was already a problem. That doesn't even make logical sense, does it? But when it comes to certain behavior, many parents do not want to prepare the child for success. I totally believe in preparing a child for success. In fact, I have seen that preparing a child for success works the majority of the time. In fact, if you teach a child ahead of time what they need to know for an upcoming circumstance, chances are they're going to make the right decision in that circumstance. I've seen it happen more times than I can count. Many parents give this bad advice. Pick your battles. Sure, we don't want to micromanage people and be hyper-controlling, but should you really even have battles at all? When I hear that phrase, pick your battles, I think, Kind of, but why are we battling with the children anyway? Why is that our mindset at all? Shouldn't we be teaching, discussing, correcting? But we don't need to be battling. A correction doesn't need to be an attack, does it? In fact, if we see it that way, I would imagine our tone is going to be coming across wrong all the time. And when a person learns self-government, hopefully they're having a change of heart. This means that the right type of tone is hitting home. So if you need to correct your child, lovingly, consistently correct them. Don't have a battle at all. I'm going to expose more bits of bad parenting advice that can confuse and just sometimes doesn't even work. But before I do that, click the subscribe button now. You will want to catch more videos on this channel that relate to self-government and improving your bonds, relationships, and behavioral outcomes with your children. Here's something that is a bad practice that many parents get involved in, and they think they have to do it. That is giving reminders and extra chances to children. When we give reminders and extra chances to children, I know we think that that's merciful because we're not correcting a situation. But that's only merciful if being corrected is bad. But we already covered that being corrected does not have to be bad or feel bad. That's all a mental state of mind, right? And our tone conveys whether it's bad or not. So if being corrected isn't bad, why are we so worried about correcting in the first place? So if you have a child who maybe you give them an instruction and they don't do it, do you give them more and more time and just nag and nag? No, that teaches them not to follow through the first time with something. It also teaches them to wait for your nagging before they do follow through, and they get entitled too. They don't think they should have to accept any negative consequences for any of their negative choices. This is not healthy for them at all. So what you want to do is you want to go straight to a correction, a consistent, loving correction every time. Don't do all those extra choices. If you really want to be merciful for your child, pre-teach ahead of time. Say, I'm going to give you an instruction. Remember, to follow an instruction, you look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay or ask to disagree appropriately, do the task immediately, and then check back. If you choose to follow the instruction, I'll give you a high five and some praise. You'll have probably more time to do things you want to do. But if you choose not to follow the instruction, then I will need to do a correction and you'll get the opportunity to earn an extra chore. Here's the instruction. I need you to clean the bathroom sink, right? Whatever it is. So you give that pre-teach as opposed to giving the nagging. Pre-teaching is always better than extra chances and reminders. Here's another thing that people often do that is not effective. They fall into the trap of discussing everything right in the minute. So something happens and there has to be a discussion. A no answer is given and there has to be a discussion. This is not good for the child to always be talking back on a regular basis and having to go through everything all the time with the parent. When a child is allowed to talk back or engage in a discussion of absolutely everything all the time, this teaches the child to power struggle, manipulate, and it teaches them that they don't ever want to be in compliance. If we want to maintain proper parental authority, then we do need to have some compliance so that one person is clearly the leader, which is the parent, and the child is the learner. So they do need to comply sometimes, which means that we shouldn't have to discuss everything. Now that said, I do try to make sure I tell my children why I'm instructing certain things or why I'm giving certain no answers at the time I give that. But after that, they need to just be able to say okay and go ahead and do whatever it is or accept the no answer. And if they have something they need to tell me, then they know that they have a skill called disagreeing appropriately that they can always use instead of just talking back. Another piece of bad advice that parents often give is that you should put financial pressure on children. I think there is healthy pressure and unhealthy pressure. So when my children are 12 and up, they do get the opportunity to buy their own clothing and gifts for people and stuff like that. But they also get the opportunity to make money. And if they had a need, of course I would take care of it. But there are some parents that start treating children in a hands-off hands-off way where it's like, you now have to behave as if you're an adult. You have to have all of the responsibilities, and they start treating the child as if the financial burden for their existence is theirs. I do think that that is wrong. We shouldn't be putting that type of pressure on children because it actually detaches them from us prematurely. It also increases their stress. Now, I do think children need to learn how to work, how to save, how to make plans and goals for life, and they need to be motivated to do all these things. But parents can do that in a way that does not increase stress and pressure to such a degree. I've seen parents who do some pretty hard things to their children by like making their children pay board and rent and stuff, even when they're still in high school. I mean, come on. We have to be the parent, right? We have to decide that it's our job to take care of them, and we need to like that. And they need to see the example for their future too. Children shouldn't be treated like a burden, and that's what that does. It gives the message of, you're a burden to me. Instead, we should be helping them prepare to launch. I have videos all about that you can watch that will help you teach your children work ethic, stuff like that, without having to manipulate with money. Many parents will say, oh, if I could just keep them younger longer, or I wish they just wouldn't grow up. They may have that wish, but honestly, we don't want our children not to grow up. That would be a bad piece of advice to try to follow through on, because maturity helps everyone bond more, and it helps everyone be understood and be happier. So we do want our children to grow and progress, and we should be discussing with them and helping them to develop maturity every single day. Here's a myth related to parenting that many parents will promote. They'll say the children have to be part of the digital world right now, otherwise they're not going to be able to navigate it when they're older. That is just not even true at all. Aren't most of us living proof of that, especially if you're an older parent like me? When I was raised, there were no cell phones for people like me. I mean, they had big bricks occasionally, but that was very rare, right? And no one I knew had any of those things. Computer came in, I had to learn it. It's changed so many times. I have had so many different types of computers now. I just have to learn them each time. Being part of the digital world on a daily basis does not make me any more ready to navigate the digital world later, because it's changing all of the time. Plus, what I really need is just self-control. And being in it all the time creates a dependency more than it creates self-control. I do teach my children how to behave with the digital world, but I first make sure that they learn self-government. If they can follow instructions, accept no answers and criticism, accept consequences, and disagree appropriately first, the majority of the time, then we'll start teaching them how to do all of the digital things. Really, that's just a myth that is totally unfounded. It's like when people used to say, which I laugh at this now, I remember somebody telling me, oh yeah, they have to learn to play computer games because it's good for their dexterity. Their dexterity, or what? Their carpal tunnel? Come on. That was the silliest thing that people were promoting. People think that playing computer games increases creativity, like Minecraft and stuff. No, they increase creativity by making a fort in the backyard a lot more than they do by stacking squares in Minecraft. So we just think things and say things and promote ideas that sometimes make us feel better, but they're really not true. Here's another one for you. Many people think that children need to be with peers that are their same age the majority of time. Nope, they don't. Social training can happen with anyone of any age, so a child can be with a parent and develop all the proper social skills. In fact, they'll probably become more mature quicker, which is actually a sign of good social development. So they can also be with younger children at the same time. Also, they don't have to be with children every day. So that's another thing too that is oftentimes a myth. Many people think that their child has to have a friend or a certain amount of friends or a friend group in order to be happy and to get the proper development. It's just not true. This one is probably the one that the most people believe that is actually not true, and it will be promoted. People say that children, all children, have to hit a phase where they don't like their parents. That somehow this is healthy for them not to like their parents, or at the very least that this is just a natural part of their progression. Not true. I did not have a situation with my 4 children where they didn't like me. Did I have a time when I didn't like my parents? Yes, that's true. But I actually was selfish during those times. And as soon as I reformed myself, meaning I learned that I needed to respect their authority and position and why that was a good thing, then everything became better for me. A child does not have to go through a phase of not liking their parents or not honoring their parents. This traditionally happens because parents and children do not nurture their bond properly. They do not discuss openly, and they spend too much time apart and with same age peers. Parents with their peers, children with their peers. When in reality, they should be spending more time together as a family. And if they did that, that would actually make it so that they would have more affection toward each other. These are just a few of the things that parents promote that truly create contention and problems, and oftentimes are just not true. And so we need to make sure that we don't fall into those things. So what is the solution? The solution is good bonding, good self-government, training ahead of time, having good open communication, and helping the child develop socially in a way that they are going to reach maturity sooner rather than later. And how does a parent do that? By creating an environment where a child gets the opportunity to learn self-government. If you've enjoyed this video, I would like to teach you more about self-government in my next video entitled The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. Click on that video now and you will learn more about the skills and principles of self-government that will help you not fall victim to those pieces of bad advice anymore.